in the summer and fall of 2014, I was making a lot of DPPOU teams. Ones I really liked, actually. And I was experimenting with a ton of stuff. They generally ranged across a pretty wide variety of playstyles, but those playstyles were all still kind of in my comfort zone, my wheelhouse, my preferred way of doing things. Now, I didn't think that was a bad thing, because those playstyles, A, had a pretty wide range between them, because I think it is important to be able to use a bunch of different stuff, and B, I was comfortable with them because they were reliable at taking on the metagame, so not really an issue, right? So these playstyles generally were in the bulky offense, balance kind of range. Some more the balance teams would lean more defensive sometimes, but they would still have speed and offensive options, things like that, because they are more effective, I think, when you're not just all defense all the time, and you use your defense to then push your opponent into a corner, and then finish them off. That's what really locks the game down for me, and why I think those teams are really flexible. And of course, I did go more offensive than bulky offense at times, but even then, those teams were never really pure hyper offense. They still liked switching around. They were more momentum through good switching and good prediction and all that, and positioning and all that kind of stuff, as opposed to just barraging through everything with brute force, because that kind of thing was less controlled. And that was, the big thing about my general playstyle, is that I liked controlled pacing. Even offensive teams, then they weren't, hanging on the edge with every turn. They could still switch around and play the game the way I wanted to, right? Whereas hyper offense, that felt a little more unreliable in that sense. But I wanted to, keep experimenting and branch out and see if I could find a way to make hyper offense work for me. And so I got to making this team, which wound up being a huge favorite of mine. I gave it to a bunch of my friends, and they used it in tournaments as well. But I really love this one because it was unique, and it was fun and fast-paced and hard-hitting, and still managed to incorporate my own playstyle, my need for control, whatever that says about me. I think it's kind of revealing. But I think that's not a bad thing in a game like Pokemon anyway. Because what else? Do you want to leave everything at the mercy of outside forces? No, come on. So the basic idea was... Well, there were a lot of basic ideas. First of all, it was to abuse Custap Berry. And at this time, Custap Berry was really only known to a couple players. And they were, and only a few knew it in terms of its use in competitive, and even fewer were building teams with it. It was me, Heist, TV Rocka, I think, had some really cool teams with Custap. And, in fact, my opponent in this, Draco Malfoy, which is the old username of Tamahome, as most of you will know him, one of the best, then I think he's using that in this battle, if I remember anyway. Or no, we had another battle after this, and or before that, I don't remember. Point being, he used TV Rocka's Custap team. It had like Exeggutor and Skuntank and stuff. Anyway, so this team was rather than the regular hyper offense style of just get your rocks with your lead, your Azelf or your arrow, and then blow up if you got an Azelf, and then start spamming DD at the opponent. I mean, this team still does have DD, of course, but I wanted to soften the opponent up more before committing to the DD stuff, because this is something that can go horribly wrong with DD spam. I mean, it can overwhelm the opponent, or it can be like, alright, well, the suicide lead is down, now the DDer comes in, you check the DDer, and all momentum is kind of, dead. Right? So, more damage through, number one, a Metagross lead, and number two, a Machamp. Now, Machamp was already an amazing Pokemon at this time, because it was so good at using Custap to get a 2-for-1 trade. And nothing loves hyper 2-for-1 trades more than, hyper offense. Maybe a debatable statement, but point being, hyper offense has every turn so crucial that if you can get a 2-for-1 reliably, that narrows the game down a lot more in your favor. Because less turns, less knowledge, every turn is more crucial, less control, right? So if you have that Machamp doing that for you, that's really big. And there's also Custap on the Metagross. So the problem with Rock's Boom Metagross is if it's got Akka or Lum or Sash, that you can't explode with it and get rocks as easily against leads and early game Pokemon in general that are going to outspeed you. And this kind of team needs rocks as soon as possible and can't afford to just put it on something else. Not to mention, what other Pokemon are you going to put it on? I mean, there are other ways to do it, for sure. Like, I also made some other teams with, like, lead Metagross that just booms, and then you pop rocks on T-Tar, Jirachi. That kind of stuff is great. No doubt about it. But for this kind of thing, because of the last Pokemon I wanted to fit, which I will keep a secret for now, then although, if you looked at the thumbnail, then you probably know already. But, maybe you forgot, so that'll make it more exciting. Anyway, point being, with Custap Berry, that kind of makes up for Metagross's A, lack of Bullet Punch, and B, usual inability to blow up and still get rocks. So you don't have to make those really awful choices of, well, do I blow up this Zapdos lead, or do I get up rocks? But I can't do both. And with Custap Berry, you kind of can. So that was the general idea. And just Custap Metagross is an amazing Pokemon in general, even beyond that little lead interaction. Like, you switch it out, you come back later, and you got this low HP Metagross from switching into whatever, and you take advantage of that, and you get a boom off. Whereas previously, oh, well, I switched into a CB Knight Outrage at 50, and now I'm at 1 HP, and now I'm just going to get finished off. Oh, wait, no, now offense. So basically, Custap lets you use these slower offensive bruisers to really bash away at the opponent, and then usually their flaw is after they've destroyed something, then they're at low HP, and they're going to get picked off easily, and with this you can get a 2-for-1. I mean, 2-for-1 with the ideal, obviously, is rocks with the Metagross, and then get a 2-for-1 later because it's just so hard to deal with, and then a 2-for-1 with Machamp, and then, the game is over, pretty much, with 3 D-Deers and the special last Pokemon. So that's the idea, 2 Custap Berries, 3 D-Deers, and then a special last Pokemon. So, this battle is one of 2 we'll be showing today, and both battles are from the same tournament. They were from the round-robin finals of a Smogon Tour on the date of November 1st, 2014. So, we're not going to do deep dive analysis. Oh, this is a cool team of Tamas. I still have the urge to call him DM sometimes, because I knew him as Draco Malfoy first. Yeah, a very unusual offensive team. Blissey lead, the Imperfect Luck special. That's an old one. So yeah, just rocks, mash, who knows what's going to happen. I mean, it might counter, but realistically, it's a tough gambit. You're not going to be using counter for much. So then Thunder Wave, I don't want to start spamming Thunder Wave into a soft-boiling Blissey through Para, and I can just get a free switch to Machamp on that, and then use Metagross later, so no problem. So instead, a Wish gets tossed up, so a very unusual poke. Also, you see that this Blissey doesn't have lefties, which is what's going on there, and it's a Chople Berry, and it's not quite enough for Machamp, so that's hilarious. So here comes Gara. I think I just stay in a Stone Edge. Yeah, not quite in a Custap range, but I just want damage on it. Don't let it set up for free. Crit helps out a lot for sure, but as you will see, this team has plenty of recourse against Gara in that situation, like Metagross. And then that was one of my favorite things about Metagross and Machamp. Or you would regularly even this is barely out of Custap range, right? But a couple switches into Stealth Rock, and maybe even Sand, and you'll get there. So you don't even necessarily have to be knocked into Custap range. You can just pivot around it. It's really great. I had a lot of tournament games where I was like, well, that Pokemon is going to beat me. Oh, never mind. I just switch Machamp into Stealth Rock twice, and then switch it out, and then it's in Custap range, and then that's the game. So a lot of flexibility. Custap has such a cool move. Here comes Breloom, and this is a fast Machamp, so it's faster than that Breloom, and Confusion does not quite get it done, but it's fine, because Breloom is chunked, which is great for my T-Tar. I think it was, my DD Tar was Life Orb, actually, which is an underrated item on Tar, And my knight is Lum, so it's going to set up here regardless. There we go. And now Fire Punch, cool. I was really hoping for that second DD, but yeah, here comes T-Tar. And I think it's Fire Punch E-Speed, so I don't get to EQ. Actually, even if I did EQ, it did have EQ, I think I might have wanted to go for Outrage anyway, because it's very possible that's a Shuka DD Tar and it'd be a shame to just die to it. I know there's going to be a steal, but if I can take out the T-Tar, that's really good. So, especially because I'm still going to damage something. Like, see, there's a Metagross, but Metagross is not threatening to me at all. So I smack it real hard with that Outrage, and it agilities. And here comes the coolest Pokemon ever. Oh, wait, no, I'm locked in. Never mind. D-Knight goes down. Okay, here's what's so cool. I could go to Metagross, but instead I go to Cresselia. That is the special last Pokemon. Now, ever since Latias came back... Well, actually, a lot of things. So... First of all, I appreciate Cresselia's presence on this team, just as, you know, this might sound a little silly, but, you know, hyper offense teams are all about bam, 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 setting up and, you know, hitting hard, and, you know, it's just a very masculine way of playing, and there's nothing wrong with that, but I appreciate the feminine touch Cresselia brings to this kind of thing, you know, and the support it brings is amazing. Because not only does it get dual screens, I mean, I find dual screens at the beginning of a game kind of, you know, unreliable. Because against defensive teams, they don't care about screens. It's like, oh yeah, well I have my Reflect up, and now Skarmory Whirlwinded me. Well, I'm glad I had that. You know, and they're tough to fit on Azelf, because you got to give up Rocks or Taunt or Boom, and none of those are good options. You know, I generally think that screens are better late game to really lock down the endgame, because you can pick your spot more. It's all about that. You know, this team was more about forcing positions, picking your, and being able to pick your spot with Metagross and then Machamp, since they do force that kind of thing with their power. Not to say that that's not a knock against Lead Azelf, it's so great, but this was how I generally felt better with it. And yeah, when you get to pick your spot with the dual screens, against a weakened team especially, that's much better. So you're not just, you know, giving that stall team, you know, free turns to do its thing. No, you pick your spot late game and you dual screen. And Cress is actually pretty speedy. This is a timid Cresselia, and its base. I don't think in terms of base speed. I always think of the number itself. Timid max speed Cresselia is just as fast as Suicune, which is 295 with max EVs. And I don't think I went to... I mean, I could have gone to 295. You know, I probably did, just because tying offensive Suicune is definitely very, very good for this kind of team. Because these kinds of, like, physically hard-hitting teams are really annoyed by offensive waters like that. Suicune especially, because it can take hits and dish them out. You know, it's a great Gyarados check, for example. So having that speed... And it's not like Cresselia really needs help with bulk. But yeah, that combination of speed and bulk lets Cress actually... I mean, there's my need to switch into things again. A little bit of the control freak in me. But you can actually switch into things like Dragonite and Flygon, and even Gliscor. And let me tell you, being able to chase out Gliscor reliably on a physical offense team is amazing. So Cresselia actually brought a lot of great stuff in that regard. Being able to switch into and chase things out, set up those screens, and then, of course, Lunar Dance. And you've got your weakened Metagross or your Machamp or one of your 3D Deers. Hey, you bring them back with Lunar Dance. And that's obviously amazing for getting more sweepers than you accounted for, in a way. You know, stall teams, especially stall teams, because those are always, with hyper offense, you can't let them get comfortable. And sometimes you almost have broken through them, but just not quite enough. Oh wait, now you Healing Wish your Lunar Dance your big threat back up, and now it's now it's easy to finish them off. I was getting a little lost there, reminiscing. But the point I was making about Latias earlier is that I still do think that hyper offense teams can or should fit this kind of support on their teams, but I can't really see Cresselia being used over Latias, because the reason you use Lunar Dance Cress, and Latias was not in OU at this time, if that wasn't clear. But the reason you'd still use Lunar Dance over Latias' Healing Wish now, but you still would, is because Lunar Dance restores PP as well. And that's really good on certain teams. Certain stall teams have made great use of it. But on hyper offense teams, which are not at risk of running out of PP pretty much ever, then you don't really need that benefit, and you would much prefer Latias's higher speed and higher threat level. Yeah, I mean, you can also do dual screens with it. You can also trick. I mean, I also thought of using trick on this Cresselia, trick Scarf, just to unload it against defensive teams and mess with them even more. So even Cress is a bit of a threat. You go to your bulky Jirachi, oh, it's been scarfed and now it can't protect and wish and other annoying stuff like that. So, and you can T-Wave to support Machamp even more. So there are options. See, this is why I never really like having definitive versions of teams, just because there are so many options. They're all really good, and I hate choosing between them. I mean, the only way I can really see Lunar Dance Cress helping with the extra PP here is if you somehow get a little too cavalier with your Machamp's Dynamic Punch or something, which is feasible into like Protect spam and whatever. But yeah, I love Cresselia's place here, and it was really cool. And I don't think Latias being weak to Dragon would really make much of a difference, like in terms of being able to switch into D-Knight and Flygon. I mean, maybe a little. Scarf Flygon is annoying, but that's what Scarf Latias is for, in many ways. So yeah, Cress is here. And it made everyone LOL in the chat. I will show a little bit of it. Yeah. Yeah, I referred to this as the manliest team on the planet because it's not afraid to be feminine, and that's the manliest thing of all. If Ryan Gosling has taught us anything. Like, there are the screens. No freeze, and now I Lunar Dance, and I tried to go to Gyarados. That wasn't a mistake. Why would you Lunar Dance a fully healthy Gyarados? No, that was not it. The problem was that is not how Lunar Dance and Healing Wish work in DPP. It's supposed to be that the hazards come first, and then you get back up to full. It's it's a different dynamic for sure, but I think it's really great if you can pull it off. So you don't have, my go-to example is always, in Gen 5, you can Healing Wish your Dragonite, but if rocks are up, it's not going to have multi-scale. Whereas if you had it in Gen 4, then you can switch 25 Gara into rocks, live at 1, and go all the way back up to full, as opposed to starting at 75. Right, and that was the goal here anyway. But it didn't work because Healing Wish was not implemented correctly on Showdown at this time, despite Gen 4 being played in official tournaments like Smogon Tour and stuff on it for months and months. And I was screaming at people to fix it, and nobody cared, so it was wrong. And I even had to get mouthy. I still haven't fixed it. It's how we're... And, yeah, it was not correct. But yeah, look at T-Punch not do... Well, I forgot... Oh yeah, I forgot he was running Bolt Beam and Agiligross. That's cool. Yeah, so it is wrong. That is not how it is. And I EQ, and it's Shuka. Oh no. But there's Reflect up, so I decide to save it. And, because Reflect with my own Metagross makes it even less of a problem. See, look at that. His last is Jolt. Yeah, it is. Yeah. Yeah, and so it was approved. Yes, I know my mechanics. I remember the first time I ever saw it work like that. I was watching a Wi-Fi battle in like 2007, and someone Healing Wished to an Aerodactyl at very low HP, and it died to rocks. So and that's how I knew that's how it worked. Never left me. So yeah, T-Ball, I sack Gyarados for extra sand, and I go to T-Tar. Crit, nothing. And oh, it's not life. Oh no, it was I was using a balance team with Life Orb DD-Tar. I remember, yeah, because one of the things I really loved that year was Spec Zapdos. I mean, I loved Spec Zapdos all the time, but it was like Spec Zapdos. Roscoe told me to use something like this. Yeah, Spec Zapdos, Scarf Jirachi, Swampert, Starmie, Breloom, Life Orb DD-Tar. But this one, I don't remember what it was. So now we'll just go through the second game as well. Now that we know the team secrets, I don't remember this battle as well. But this is against my great friend Stathicus, who I miss. He was a great player, multiple generations. So this is a Custap meta, so it's not going to wake up against Rose. But Sleep Powder accuracy, low sleep duration, T-Spikes, okay, rocks. Slept again, no problem. see what kind of coverage it's going to run. Gets up a double layer, so that definitely indicates some sort of slow setup. Because a more fast-paced offensive T-Spikes team with like offensive Calm Mind, Rachi, and Suicune as the most traditional examples, then those would want one layer for the more immediate damage. And if you see that the opposing team is going to run Blissey, then you just get that second layer. It's not hard because Roserade waltzes in against a lot of defensive stuff. God, that just made me remember how old stall teams in DPP were like single-handedly ruined by Spikes Roserade of all things. What a time. Anyway, especially double Spikes Roserade. Anyway, point being, if you've got a team with more slow setup kind of things, like Calm Mind Rest Suicune, then you might want the double layer, or like a sub Calm Mind Jirachi. Anyway, so I go to D-Knight because if it's... Oh yeah, I didn't think it was going to be HP Ice because I thought it would probably switch if it against the Metagross. Because it's not going to go, okay, I got my second layer, well, now I'm completely walled by the Metagross. No, Metagross is a threat. You sleep it again, you get out of there, and you start doing damage. Stath is a good player. He knows what he's doing. So I assumed that it would have HP, Fire, or Ground, so I could set up on it. I was not expecting Sludge Bomb. Not quite, but it's fine because I avoided 2 KO, but it does mean that I don't completely dominate the Roserade. But I don't fear a Poison because I get a... I wonder why I showed Extreme Speed there. I don't know if that was optimal. Maybe I was trying to hit a Heatran on the Switch or something? Who knows? Who knows? So I don't give it a Flash Fire booster. I don't know. I think that was silly. I should have gone with Fire Punch anyway, just for less information. Yeah. Yeah, I don't fear Sludge Bomb Poison because of Lum. Okay, Machamp coming in, and I do not eat the Lum here. Great double switch by Stath there. He's expecting like a T-Tar to come in. So, rather than get Rotom easily pursued, then he'll take advantage of it with Bronzong to get Rocks. And Machamp... Actually, this is a... Wow, look at that D-Punch. Hit real hard. It gets Rocks through Confusion, but that's fine. And D-Punch again goes down because switching Rotom in is a dicey proposition. Funnily enough, the T-Spikes are actually helping me get to Custap here without even taking hits. So, sub... and I can't even be burned because of the poison. So here's a sub Rotom. It's bulky, and he doesn't know my bulk on Machamp. So rather than risk the T-Bolt not KOing, which is a very real possibility, especially if he's lefty sub Rotom, which very strongly suggests a max HP variant as opposed to a max special attack variant, then he doesn't want to risk it. So he may as well just sub and really get him down. And the poison gets me to 7. And Custap activates, and Stone Edge takes out Rotom. Look at that. God, there's the 2-for-1 Machamp special. That's a thing of beauty. Go to Dina. I don't know if that was the wisest move, but I think it's a good one, because I've still got Lunar Dance Crest to wake up the Metagross if need be, alongside my 2 Didiers. And so it's 4-on-3, so I have that advantage. I mean, I would have liked to have, I don't know, maybe I would have liked to have had the Death Fodder there. But I don't know. I think it was far ahead enough to where I could afford to use that sacrifice then and there. Whereas having some sort of unusual double down might put me in a more uncomfortable position. Because this way I can keep up the tempo because I can pressure whatever comes in, or as well as I can. So I think that was probably best. I mean, yeah, you could say, oh, you can just sack D-Knight after. Maybe. It's very possible. But I was having a tough time getting a read on his team just because it was unusual. I mean, Sludge Bomb Roserade is unusual. Rocks Bronzong, unusual alongside it. So I was like, okay, probably going to be the usual suspects, like, especially the way he went for the second T-Spike layer against what's clearly an offensive team, because Metagross lead signifies offense. So I was really unsure. I mean, water for sure. Very likely. Like Empoleon, Kingdra, Suicune, and like then a Heatran or something after, but I wasn't sure. And it being a non-rock Swampert is actually very tough, because that back then meant Curse. Nowadays it might mean something else, or almost surely would mean something else. But back then, Curse is for a team that's focused on physical attackers, it's really tough, especially with T-Spike support. So messing up my my T-Tar, not my Gyara, sorry. So I think I'll go right to Cress here, just to reflect. Yeah, I just reflect and Lunar Dance right away, so I don't give the thing too many. Yeah. Okay, so this gives... So basically, the way I'm going to beat this Swampert... Maybe I should have gone to Gyara. And then... I don't know, though, because if that Swampert starts Curse... Well, yeah, Gyara might have been better. Might have. But either way, I still think this is fine because Metagross takes so little damage. Look at that incorrect Lunar Dance mechanic. Still being annoying. Should be at full. Since Reflect is up, then I have a few turns to EQ at Swampert. And he tries to rest off the boom. So that was important. Because the pressure is on me, for sure. So I definitely see him being desperate. Or, not being desperate. Him knowing I'm desperate and trying to play around the boom. So, yeah, that rest goes off. And I've got several turns of Reflect going. Since Cresselia is holding Light Clay, then it's extended. So even after he wakes up, I will still be able to take that +2 EQ. So I can... damage him, and since it's Curse Pert, it's not going to be defense invested, so even after a couple defense boosts, then Explosion, because it's pre-Gen 5 mechanics, is going to hit really hard. And then I EQ again, and he switches out and goes to Kingdra, so that's phenomenal. And it lives the Life Orb Hydro, just barely, EQ, and it's in Custap range, and you know what that means. Here comes Empoleon, Custap, boom. Insane. So, look at... the double 2-for-1 Custap deal. Yeah. Carrying hard. So now Gyarados in against the Swampert. And is it Sleep Talk Pert? I forget. It is. Okay, well that makes Metagross even more able to stay in on Swampert. I mean, it being able to Sleep Talk Curse is risky, for sure. But but it means that it can't actually threaten the Gross, so I can go for more crits or, you know, weaken him into EQs, things like that. And of course it means that Gyarados is, well, I mean, you'll see here, it's not necessarily going to be able to beat it one-on-one. I mean, it is in Gyarados' favor, for sure. But, yeah. Oh yeah, +1 EQ into that. Yeah, that looks... Even if it got cursed, that's... Yeah, Gyarados is going to win that. So, thank you for watching. The Cresselia touch... Look at that. Just the way it... Look at the support Cresselia brought in both those games. With the screens and the Lunar... That was just a thing of beauty. Yeah, even though Lunar Dance mechanics were incorrect, it still got it done. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one.